How's it going, YouTube? Happy almost EX6 format. It feels like only yesterday we just got BT16, because it was. But I wanted to break the content silence and come back to deck profiles and discussions to talk about single-handedly the most important deck of this set. 4 Great Dragons, baby. Wahoo. For those that don't know, the 4 Great Dragons are a group of mega-level Digimon comprised of Goldramon, Magnadramon, Azulongmon, and Megidramon. I'm just using the same names they use in the Western translation of the card game. Don't come for me, comment section. And whilst they have such an unfathomable power level between them that they became known as the aforementioned group, they're not actually considered much of a team. The Digimon themselves are known to set trials for other Dragon Digimon to help them achieve previously unobtainable power through the trial of the 4 Great Dragons. It's also worth noting that all of these Digimon on the related lines also belong to other families such as the 3 Great Angels, the 4 Sovereigns, or in Megidramon's case, literally existing as a digital hazard within the world itself. Pretty big deal. So when they introduced such a prestigious group of Dragon Digimon into the trading card game, they single-handedly took over the meta. Right? Wrong. The 4 Great Dragons debuted in EX3 Draconic Roar, which was a special set released towards the end of 2022, shortly after the release of BT10, and would feature a number of fan favourite Dragon Digimon, some for the very first time in the current iteration of the card game. The archetype featured 2 full lines from Rookie to Mega with a toolbox of search, utility, and even an archetypal win condition, kinda, that saw you trash security from a Goldramon swing if the other 3 dragons were in the trash and could then be returned to the bottom of the deck by the same effect. The deck was so underwhelming in actual practice that it saw basically no tournament play, all art prices plummeted shortly after release, and even from a casual point of view, the deck required so much help from other archetypes or colours to even attempt to keep up, all whilst diluting the sliver of synergy it ever had in the first place. 4 Great Dragons had the potential to do something fun, and I suppose it did, but not even remotely well enough to be considered for tournament, locals, or even casual play, unless you're me. We've received some second-hand support in recent sets with the introduction of a new Goldramon and Magnadramon from BT14 and BT15 respectively, but really this wasn't designed with the previous archetype in mind and were mostly additional level 6s for both TK and Carry. Until now. BT16 introduced literally 2 new cards within archetype that not only make the deck fresh and fun to play again, but in my opinion finally gives it just the slightest tip over the edge, allowing us to try our hardest to cook up something that doesn't get absolutely disintegrated in the golden armor meta. In all seriousness, however, I do think small pockets of support that Bandai seem to be giving older archetypes within main sets is a really cool nod to those players who do still enjoy making their favourite Digimon work, and if this continues in main sets to come, I think we'll have a very content mix of competitive and casual players within our community. Anyway, let's get stuck into the deck, and what are we trying to achieve? Goldramon X and Dragon's Breath gives us 2 new relatively meta-adjacent flavours that allow us to use option cards when evolving or attacking, as well as tapping into the Goldramon underneath and searching our deck for pieces that we need, and then having a few delayed tools at our disposal, allowing us to stack trash or continue with the game plan, all whilst minusing our opponent's DP. Whilst the trash 2 when attacking gimmick isn't the gotcha moment that Bandai or we may have hoped it was 2 years ago, it's still something we can utilise under the brand new 13k raid when attacking play an option and also minus 6k a body boss monster. We also don't need Goldramon or X antibody in the sources to use the Evo effect, but we do still benefit from a cheaper Evo in hopefully a same turn swing with 2 main effects if we can, all while still taking advantage of the other 3 dragons on plays and trying our best to make the most of our stacks in order to disrupt our opponent along the way. Let's get into the profile. Starting off with eggs, it's pretty simple. There's not really a whole lot to say about this. We're just going to be playing 4 copies of BT14 Tokomon. I think I've tried lots of different eggs and rookie combos in this. I've tried to make it TK focus, I've tried to make it carry focus, I've tried to not make it either, and really I just think the most consistent thing that you can try and ask for in this deck is to be drawing more cards. So when a card's added to your stack, draw a card. Simple, nothing else to say. The rookies is quite a small lineup, but anyone who's played the deck before knows that this isn't a traditional stack deck, and for the most part we're wanting to just try and use the cards that we have on our lower end to utilize playing the cards on the bigger end. So it's pretty simple. We're going to be running 4 copies of BT14 Patamon, and we're going to be running 3 copies of EX3 Patamon. BT14 Patamon's start of main phase lets us search our stack, and then the Patamon itself can digivolve up into a yellow Digimon with the vaccine trait among them without paying the cost. Then we shuffle our stack, and if we digivolve by this effect, we can place a yellow card with the vaccine trait from our hand at the bottom of the security stack. It's then worth noting that we also trigger the inheritable to gain a memory, and then also also the Tokumon, hopefully, to draw a card as well. This is going to be really good for just trying to turbo up into the 4s to give us some more search, or to just give us some more evos to try and get into the 5 as quick as we can to hopefully play the option card, but we'll get into that once we get to those levels. EX3 Patamon's on play reveals the top 4 cards of our deck. We get to add 1 yellow card with Angel in its traits, and 1 card with 4 Great Dragons in its traits from among them to our hand. We place the rest at the bottom of the deck in any order. Pretty simple. Let's just grab any of the yellow Angel cards that we play in here. It's going to help us get into the trials quicker. It's going to help us make the level 4 inheritables live, but then also is going to grab anything in our deck with 4 Great Dragons in the trait, which is going to be really important with the addition of the new cards. And that's it for the level 3s. Level 4s, again, it's just really simple in this low end. It's exactly the same as it has been before. I'm playing 4 copies of the EX3 Gatomon, and I'm playing 4 copies of the EX3 Vidramon. This is it, 8 champs. Gatomon's on play reveals the top 4 cards of our deck, just like Patamon. We add a yellow card with Angel in its traits, just like Patamon, and we add 1 card with the 4 Great Dragons traits among them to our hand, and we bottom deck the rest, just like Patamon. Vidramon is a slightly different, whereas it went Digivolving effect this time, which is important. We revealed the top 4 still. We had a yellow card with Dramon in its name, and 1 card with 4 Great Dragons in its traits, and then place the rest at the bottom of the deck. Both inherits are going to grant rush to a 4 Great Dragons Digimon when we play it, so it's really important that we have 8 targets for this across our 4s, just so we can make sure that we're definitely getting the rush off when we manage to play something out with one of the effects. The good difference between these is Vidramon is pretty much always going to want to be your Patamon target. Not only are you going to gain the memory, you're going to recover 1, you're going to draw a card, but you're also going to be able to then draw for the Evo and then search the top 4 off that. We'll be able to cheat out the Gatomon if you see the Gatomon stuck in there, but if you have to take something off Patamon, it's still good to place something from your hand, gain the memory, and draw the card. Not the end of the world, it's a free Evo, and it's going to let you go into your level 5, hopefully, that turn. That's it. Playing 7 level 5s this time. I'm running 4 copies of Angiwimon from EX3, and I'm running 3 copies of Angiwimon Ace from BT15. The EX3 Angiwimon, when Digivolving, if we don't have a trial of the 4 Great Dragons in play, we can place 1 from our hand into the battle area. It's important to note we don't get the draw 1 off that, it is what it is, but it sets us up for the following turn that we're hopefully then going to be able to cheat it out. Your turn, when you play a Digimon with the 4 Great Dragons trait, or place a trial in your battle area, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3k for the turn. Floodgates are still prevalent. People are playing floodgates for different reasons. They want to try and stop partition, they want to try and stop memory gain, they might want to try and stop Uko, you know, Uko's everywhere. The cool thing with Angiwimon is if there is a pesky floodgate that's stopping you play things by effects, you can always try and pop it with the 3k that you're going to get when you place the trial with the same effect. Running through the Ace because I very rarely want the Ace to be under my Goldramon. If there was any reason to try and get rid of your boss monster, gaining 3 memory off of something in the stack makes dropping 7 for a Heaven's Judgment or 8 for a Giant Missile or a Gaia Trident or whatever considerably less of an investment if they're getting 3 back. But I also think it's cool because sometimes you are just left with the 4s on field and you don't necessarily want to evolve on your turn. It does give you some options to blast on your opponent's turn, give some minus DP to things, and then we also have the effect that when a card's removed from your stack, if we've got 3 or fewer, we recover 1, which is also going to trigger some of our Tamers. We do have some carry adjacent trash effects in the deck, and I think that the cool thing about this is it just gives us an additional level of interaction that the deck was missing before, and I'm really excited to talk about that. We don't play the Aero Vidramons anymore because I just don't think it's needed. I think the blocker comes up less when you're trying to control more. Sometimes you want your security get hit, and I think that the biggest thing that the deck was struggling with before was finding ways to place the trial of the 4 Great Dragons into your battle area for either the first time or an additional time off the back of a failed dragon. The deck has more options for this now, so I just think we can drop the Aero Vidramon. I didn't personally like it as much, and it means it frees up some space for something like Angiwimon Ace. You could always try Magna Angiwimon Ace if you really wanted to, but I think that the guaranteed -6 from trashing a security feels better than the recovery and possibly still only been able to, you know, -6. If we're down to 1 or 2 security left, we can still -6 something and we're also going to recover, and I just prefer that personally. Plus it's an archetype. I like the consistency. Alright, now we've got 11 6s, 11 megas. Now, obviously, this is the theme of the deck. This is where the chunk of the content, the meat comes from. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about what I like. We're going to talk about what the strategies might be. First up, we get 3 copies of Goldramon X Antibody. It's got evos on Goldramon for 2 or on a yellow or red level 5 for 5, which is quite a lot. It does have Raid, which is going to let you, when attacking, you can change your target to the highest unsuspended DP Digimon on your opponent's side of the field. When Digivolving and when attacking, you may use 1 God Flame or 1 one option card with the 4 Great Dragons trait from your hand without paying the cost. In all turns, this Digimon gains all effects of Goldramon in this Digimon's Digivolution cards. The thing that I didn't realise about this card on the surface is the fact that your when attacking will trigger for both the Goldramon and the X that's underneath. So you can minus 6k, could use God Flame from your hand before triggering raid, because it all happens at the same time. So you could actually sort of influence board state if you're trying to swing into something in particular, but it's not the be all and end all. 2 copies of Goldramon from EX3. This thing, when Digivolving, you return 1 card with 4 Great Dragons and its traits from the trash to your hand. It's good to maybe get the trial back, our other option card that we're about to talk about soon, or you can get one of the other dragons back if you're trying to set something else up. You can also use it when Digivolving to return your Goldramon X back, just in case it's maybe been hit in security, or you've had to trash it for some reason earlier in the game. Play 2 copies of Azulomon, which is by far my favourite. I love Azulomon so much, and this art by Koki just goes so hard, man. This starts the theme with the rest of the 4 Great Dragons, where they all have an on-play effect, but if you play them by the effect of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons itself, you get a buff or additional effect. Azulomon's on-play is draw 2, but if you play it by Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, it also gains you 2 memory. Then we play 2 copies of Megidramon. Well, let's move these kids up. That's better. We've got 2 copies of Megidramon. Megidramon's on-play deletes a level 5 or lower. If you play it off of the Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, you're going to pop a level 6 or lower. Next, we're going to play 1 copy of Magnadramon from EX3. On play, all of your opponent's Digimon get security -1, and that's a blanket effect. If it's played off the trial, then you're going to be security -2 instead. It's also worth noting that these 3 specific 4 Great Dragon cards from EX3 all have the effect on deletion. If you don't have Trial of the 4 Great Dragons in play, you may place one from your hand into your battle area. This is really good for cycling them to make sure you get all the on-play effects. When they get deleted by the effect, which we'll go into in a little minute, they also then get to sort of recycle that so that you can then try and go into a dragon on your next turn. The last one I'm playing is 1 copy of Magnadramon from BT15. If it wasn't for the fact it doesn't have the on-deletion recycle, I would probably play 2 of this instead, but I just like having more options for that because you do sometimes just want to throw the Magnadramon into trash, and I quite like the blanket sec -2. This Magnadramon's on play and when Digivolving is by trashing the top or bottom card of your security stack. One of your opponent's Digimon gets -9k until the end of their turn. Until the end of their turn, yeah, you heard me. All turns when a card is removed from your security stack, if you have 3 or fewer, you may place 1 yellow card from your hand at the top or bottom of your security stack. Just yellow cards, so this can be a Tamer, this can be an option card, but the cool thing about it is the fact that we get to stack. It's something we can play off of trial because it has 4 Great Dragons. It's something that's searchable. The fact that it has a when Digivolving means that if you want to put it on your stack in order to just continue or facilitate some plays, then it's easily done. But you can also play it off the trial, which feels kind of cool. If you play it off the trial, it obviously gets deleted at the end of your opponent's turn. However, it's not the biggest deal. It just doesn't float into another trial from your hand. That's kind of it from the 6s. For the most part, you're just trying to use the dragons as much as you can to answer board, to try and control things until you're in a bit more of a positive or dominant state that you can start clapping back. I don't think the deck is particularly aggro, but if you're playing against another deck that requires a little bit of setup, which honestly in the meta right now, I don't think is a lot of them unless it's some of the non-tier 1 DNA decks. I feel like Numemon, Magna, Imperial, any of those decks are probably going to be a bit too quick, so you're going to be on the defensive for the lot of the game. And if you manage to survive, if you pilot it well, and if the deck treats you right, then I think that the 6s can be really strong against it. I don't think it's tier 1 by any means. I think it's fun, and I think if you really get to terms with what the deck can do, you get a good feel for it, I think you could pilot it well. But that's it for the 6s. So then we move on to Tamers. Tamers is really simple. I'm playing 2 copies of Kari Kamiya from BT8, and I'm playing 3 copies of TK from BT14. It's a bit of a simple one. I don't really have a whole lot to say on this. The Kari's a memory setter, and then when a card's added to our stack, we can suspend the Tamer to gain a memory, which is great. The TK list has returned the top card of our security stack to the hand, and we may place a yellow card with the vaccine trait from our hand to the bottom of the security stack. And then on our turn, when a card's added, again, we can tap it to gain a memory. It's nice to have memory setters, but also cheap Tamers that we can use to have some sort of security manipulation in that. I think it's one extra step that we may have struggled with a little bit before with 4 Great Dragons. It just gives us another resource that we can try and utilize here. Also, if we're lucky enough to get all 5 of them out, and you can, tap to gain 5 back, feels great. Synergizes well with Anjumon Ace, synergizes well with TK, synergizes well with a couple of the cards that we're about to talk about. And I think anything that we can utilize that way to try and help keep our turn, go into the next stage, be able to play a card that helps us search more, dig deeper, play utility, whatever it might be, I think both of these really help. Plus, it's also just nice if you're opening up and you get BT14 Patamon and you also get a TK, and you can, you know, take the top card and maybe throw your Vidramon in there, knowing that next turn you're going to push out the Patamon, Evo into the Vidramon, you know, gain 2 memory, draw a card, draw for the Evo, then search for. Like, it feels really good in the beginning. And that's it for Tamers. Last thing is option cards. This is a little bit more chunky. We're playing 12 option cards, which feels quite a lot on the surface, but it's not as bad once we break it down and we talk about what they all are and what they do. So the first ones we're playing is 4 copies of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons. I think this goes without saying. You could probably try and play 3 copies if you wanted to, but I think that you really need 4 to see as much as possible, but also to get as much use out of it throughout the game. You do have cards in the deck that let you add it back from trash, but really you don't want to be relying on that. You just want to be able to hit it in security. You want to be placing it in security with things like Magnetramon, but also just having 4 copies just makes you 4 times more likely to see it, right? Next card is definitely my new favorite. It's the Dragon's Breath from BT16. I'm mad that it's a common and not an uncommon, because I would have loved to have had a foil version of this card, but whatever, Bandai, it's okay. I'm not salty. This card's great. So it costs 4. Main, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Add 1 4 Great Dragons trait or yellow card among them to your hand. Return the rest to the bottom of the deck and then place this card in the battle area. That's huge. I'm sorry I didn't go over this. Your main is draw 1 card, place it in the battle area, and then the delay effect is you trash it to play out a 4 Great Dragons Digimon card. The Digimon you play with the effect gets destroyed at the end of your opponent's turn, which then, hopefully, if it's one of the 3 that on deletion lets you play a trial from your hand, you recycle it. Dragon's Breath, huge. Search 4, you go 4 deep, add a 4 Great Dragons trait or 1 yellow card. Basically everything in the deck. Everything in the deck either has 4 Great Dragons in its trait or is yellow. So it grabs you anything. Option cards, Tamers, any of the 4 Great Dragons, your rookies, your champs, your Anjumon Ace. It doesn't matter. It grabs them all. I love the cards so much. The delay does one of 2 things. You can place a trial from your hand into the battle area, or you can trash a 4 Great Dragons from your hand, and if you do either, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 7k for the turn. Wild. Absolutely wild. The security effect, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 7k for the turn, and then you place it in the battle area. I would love it a little bit more if this was until the end of your turn, because then on your turn you could crack it and give another minus 7 to something, but it's still a great card. It's definitely what it needed. The fact that we've got search, a delay, it minuses DP, security effect, it's all great. I think it's an awesome card in my opinion. Last 4 cards are just 2 little 2-ofs. The first one makes sense, the second one might not make as much. First one, I need to move all these cards up again, I'm sorry. So it's just first 2 cards, Godflame from EX3, makes sense. Main, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6 for the turn, then you return a 4 Great Dragons trait from your trash to hand. Huge. Kills me that this card doesn't have 4 Great Dragons in its traits, but it is what it is. They had to do what they had to do. On Goldramon X, they could have just said play a 4 Great Dragons option card. They could have. But they didn't. It is what it is. The second 2-off we're playing is Revelation of Light. This one maybe makes less sense. Maybe it does make sense considering the other cards we've spoken about today. Revelation of Light is a 4 cost. The main, you search your security stack and you can play 1 yellow level 4 or lower Digimon card from among it without paying the cost. Then you shuffle your stack. If you get a Tamer with Kari Kamiya in its name in play, you place this card on top of your stack. So it's cool for 2 reasons. It helps us search out something like the Gatomon if we want to dig deeper. We might have put the Gatomon in there earlier in the game. Comes out on play, we search for, we grab a yellow angel, we grab a 4 Great Dragons traits. Cool, awesome. If it's not and we just have something in there, maybe the EX3 Patamon's in there, literally any card that we just want to pull onto the field is in there. If you have Carry on the field, then you're at least tapping for 1, so the card costs 3. If you've got multiple Tamers out, you're positive, right? It's in a really good place. The fact that it goes back onto the stack is great because the security effect is all of your opponent's Digimon and security Digimon get minus 5k until the end of your turn. So they hit it on their turn when they're swinging in, they get minus 5k for the rest of their turn, and then when it becomes your turn, their board's still minus 5k. Blanket effect, so anything played gets minus 5 or dies. But then on top of that, all of their security Digimon also get minus 5k. So it means you can swing in a little bit more confidently, knowing that you're probably less likely to die unless you hit a bomb. The top part of this card effect that you might see here says when an effect trashes this card from the stack, you get to activate the main security effect. So if you use something like Anjumon Ace, Magnetramon to trash that top card in order to minus some DP and do something on the board, you're also then going to trigger it, so you're then going to have another minus 5. It's not happened a lot, it's not came up too frequently, but the amount of times that I have managed to pop this off, pop the card on top, they've swung in, blast into Anjumon Ace, you trash that top card, you give a blanket minus 5 to the board, which is going to then stick until the end of your turn, and then Anjumon is going to minus 6k something, and then hopefully recover if you're on less than 3. It's literally the way the card's described. It's not like I've came up with some cracked combo, but the fact that you get to do something like that within this deck when it struggled so hard before, it's such a positive improvement that the deck so badly needed. And that's it for option cards. Overall, the deck is still fun. It's maybe not as competitive as it could have been with some other improvements, but I honestly think that fun is the main aim here. Keeping something within archetype, having enough utility that you don't just get completely smashed by the meta is a really nice place to be. I don't think it'll ever be tier 1. I don't really know what else they could bring out for the deck without massive amounts of power creep. that would make it tier 1. I think similar to before, if you started to splash in any other colors, you know, like I considered going down like yellow-purple route again, playing Flame Hell Scythes, playing the Searcher Gatomons. I think it takes away from the very small amount of synergy that it does have that does work. There's a lot of cool cards. The new introduction of Dragon's Breath I think is really good to get such a deep search, to get some really good utility off it, to continue the minus DP, coupling the fact that, you know, it's Magnadramon's attack to go off the back of things that Angelumon has done that Carry can do. I don't think it's coincidence that it has some sort of synergy together, but I think it was well overdue, and I think it makes the deck a lot of fun. Let me know your thoughts. Tell me if you enjoy it, if you want to put it together, try playing it on the sim. I'll include a deck list below, add it to your sim, your DCG online if you want to play it. Let me know how you got on with it. Let me know what your matchups are like. I'd love to know. If there's any improvements, tell me something you would add, something you would remove. Is it pure copium? Probably. Could you make it better without playing as many of the 4 Great Dragons and just make it a Goldramon deck? Probably. But where's the fun in that? It's not archetype, it's the 4 Great Dragons. Enjoy it. Thanks for hanging out. It's been a pleasure to be back here. Like, subscribe, do all those things. Just drop me some comments. I don't really care. Take it easy. I love you. Bye.